Hello, everybody, and welcome to Adobe Live. We'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that we are streaming and creating from today, and pay respects to elders past, present, and emerging. My name is Flynn. We're from the Adobe Live Asia Pacific team here in Sydney, Australia. Would love to know if you are live in chat. Give us a shout out. Let us know where you're tuning in from, or just say hi. It's always great. And if you have questions throughout today's live stream, please don't hesitate to throw them down into chat. I'll be keeping an eye on YouTube and also Behance. We're hanging out. We're tackling a live brief with my good buddy who hasn't been on for a while, Dale Bigeni. What is up, Dale?
Hey, how you going, Flynn?
I'm really good, thanks. And I was just we were just reminiscing before the stream. It's been too long since we've hung out live on Adobe Live.
It has. And each time it doesn't feel any more less nerve-wracking, I'll tell you that much.
It's all right. We'll get all loose once you fire up Photoshop and Illustrator and start talking about the things that we've got planned. I think it'll be super cruisy. Yeah. So I just realized that I've got your name as Annika, who was the last guest on our stream below. This is Dale, not Annika. My bad. I will fix that.
You know what? I'll take it. Whatever.
Yeah.
Just we can. That's a little bit of a tech problem. Classic Adobe Live, you know.
Yeah, I'm a professional, I promise. But hey, we're here to learn from Dale, not from me. But I've realized that we're on the global channel here, but although we are from Asia Pacific, there might be some people that aren't familiar with your work or some of our previous live streams that we've done together. So can you give us the pitch? Who is Dale Bigeni and what does he do?
All right. Well, I'm just a normal guy that likes to draw. Really, I've spent a lot of my life drawing. I've actually just only ever seen myself as being an artist. Whether I've reached that point or not, I let the viewers decide. But yeah, I'm a digital artist primarily. I obviously started traditional when computers weren't such a big thing, but I really embrace technology and everything it's got to offer. But I paint walls. I sign write. I do digital art, live art. As long as it's being creative, that's what I do. So, but yeah, a lot of my stuff is very. How do I say? It started off as darker content. I don't know if you can see my screen at the moment, but back in the day, it used to just be primary black and white stuff. This is just a really small overview of stuff, and a lot of it's old. But I did a lot of black and white stuff, but then I started, shifting gears, and as clients requested newer things and stuff like that, I started kind of going into the color realm, and now I've just become one of those. I don't think I have a style. I think people tell me a lot of the time they say I've got a style, but I just think I like to create. So you can see I've done stuff for Disney, some stuff for Nobby underwear here in Australia, some stuff for Facebook. I've done work for Sharpie, Harley Davidson, Johnny Cupcakes. It's been a big mixed bag of a career for me, and I'm just grateful to be here doing this as a job.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people want to get there and they don't know how. So I think that's our job as artists and business owners to kind of share that. So that's why we're here today.
Yeah, awesome. No, it's great.
Yeah.
And it's great to see, all your artwork there. See Davin in chat as well. And I think Cass from Brisbane as well. Brisbane, Australia, in the same time zone. What's up? That's awesome. Well, thanks for hanging out. But yeah, you've got a bunch of stuff that you wanted to cover with us today. It was really cool because we were talking about this live stream doing something a little bit different. And you were talking about kind of tackling a brief and helping people and creatives kind of understand the briefing process. And I'm all for it. I'm all about it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to give you my version of how to tackle it. It does involve a little bit of talking, but it does have a little bit of prac. We've got 2 days to talk about this. So I think it's what better time to do it than now. But yeah, I'll just jump straight into it and we'll go through kind of steps and processes about how I handle things from email to kind of completed art. So initial contact to completed art. Is that cool?
That sounds good to me. Yeah. I'm down with it. I quite like talking about the briefing process a lot with creatives because I feel like I sit on both sides of the fence so often.
Yeah.
I'm technically a contractor, but work for a big company and I write briefs and I interpret briefs and I'm a designer on the side as well. I'm working on a creative brief at the moment.
And they vary so much
so much. Yeah.
Like you can have a really good brief that ticks all your boxes, but you can also have a really average brief that just does not help you out at all. So we're going to do mid ground. I'm just going to start with like, this is kind of a job I was working on at the moment. So I'm just going to open this up. I'm just going to reduce some windows. So I've got this little, can you see that, Flynn?
Yep, see that. So yeah, we've got the email. I love this because this is literally how most projects will come through, right? Hey,
yeah, and
what's up?
Yeah. Look, it's a little bit of a casual contact at first. For me, it's always kind of like I like to think people can approach me like I'm just a guy. Like I never want to feel like I'm bigger than I am or smaller than I am. I just want to be like treated as a human, treat them as a human, not as like, oh wow, it's Disney, I should do a backflip and bend over and do whatever else. I kind of just like, I get the email and I feel a lot like this little kid down here. I get really excited because it's like an open brief.
Yeah.
This one, for instance, is basically just a new illustration. I've opened it up. It's basically asking for just some t-shirt merch designs. That's a lot of what I do now, is just a lot of promo stuff, merch and posters, things like that, which is cool. I love doing it. And obviously it gives me enough, of creative freedom to express myself just right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, basically I've got a brief here and they're saying they want t-shirts. I won't read it. You can read it if you want to. But it's kind of like an open brief. So this brief is like that dream job that all designers want, but it also comes at a cost for your stress levels, I guess. I always think I'd rather be told what to do.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You're talking about you're talking about having like a really open brief.
Yeah, so where it's like we have no ideas, but we know you're capable. So what does that mean? So that's basically someone putting their entire faith of, their business and what they do. And look, the business may vary. So I don't really, like I said, I'll do work for anyone. I really don't have a niche market. I'd like to think I'm pretty diverse in the fact that I'll do it for a coffee company, but I'll do it for a cleaning company. Or it doesn't really matter. So this is actually a tow truck business out here in Sydney, and it's basically like an open brief, but I see it as like it could be a negative or a positive. However, whatever kind of artist you are, I'm getting a little bit older. In my old age, I kind of like to be helped along the way, give me my cane, let me have some assistance.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get this email and I start to think about things straight away. So I do have to quote it. I do have to do the business side. It's not fun. It's not exciting. But they're parts of the process. The process isn't just a draw. I think to be successful, you have to be a successful person and business. Does that make sense? You're not just one or the other.
Yep.
So yeah, once I've got my email, I start to think about the price, the time, the actual brief as a whole, what's involved, and then I go down and I see this. So this is my 5 little, I guess, tips to anyone wanting to know the things that I consider, I guess. So this is respond quick, but not too quick. You don't want to look like you're desperate for the work and, like they're the only person that's emailed you in 4 weeks. Even if they are, just maybe give it a day, sit on it, let them, have a little bit of time to think about what they want, because chances are they might send through things after it. And I find that happens a lot. I sit, not that I intentionally do it. Obviously, I've got a bunch of emails, so I kind of can't get to them more in a timely fashion, unfortunately. But I like to just say, I give it a day just to let them, especially with an open brief, overnight, that same person that wrote that email is like, actually, I saw this other guy's artwork. Can we have something similar? Or something triggers them. So respond quick enough that they don't lose interest, but give it some breathing space. You don't want to look too desperate. You always quote accordingly. If you're trying to start a business, be a business. Don't be like trying to do favors for people. Favors will just put you into a low point, and I think favors only last for so long. And I mean, they're okay to do if it's maybe a contra deal, or it's maybe it's going to get you that exposure you really want, and you can take that chance, take that shot. But always remember that your time is money, and I think now is the right time to say that, nothing's getting cheaper, especially here in Australia. Things are just going up and up. So if you want to be a business, then be a business. Be honest from the start with everything you do. Don't take on more than you can chew. If they say they want 5 designs and you can only do 3 designs, don't take on the 5. Like, your time's important. Like you need a social life. You need to be with family and stuff like that. So don't just work. You need to be honest about the amount of work you can take, and if a brief doesn't sit well, be honest and give them your feedback. I think they would appreciate it. Set timelines that suit both parties. Always ask the question, when's the deadline? Deadline's the biggest part of design illustration. We always think we've got all the time, but the client might think they have enough time, but it creeps up really quick, and then they realize that they need to take into consideration print production, getting stuff out into the market on a certain date and stuff like that. So get timelines and dates and stuff that suit both of you. Again, if it doesn't suit, be honest, push it, or decline the job. No one's going to hate you if you be real about it, I think. And always make them feel a part of it, I guess. Businesses like to feel like they're in control. That's fine. I think giving them that power to pick and choose and really be a part of the process. I've had this happen a lot where people are like, they're really stoked to be like, oh, I love seeing the process, and I love that, and get on calls and get on the phone with them, make them feel like they're really a part of it. Otherwise, it's, I don't know, it feels like it's a better connection. It feels like he's a friend. And friendships are important. They keep business strong. So yeah, they're my top 5 overall. Like, when attacking a brief from the start, remember all this stuff. I think if you can get all this stuff into a good position, and it kind of puts everything into perspective from the start, I think it can be a really smooth process throughout the whole thing. And 9 times out of 10, if you make them feel a part of it, you be honest, you're real from the start, it's guaranteed they're going to come back for more work. So they're my 5 tips. They work for me. Maybe they don't work for everyone.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I like down the bottom it says, believe it or not, I was a graphic designer for many years, because a lot of this does kind of transcend creative fields, but it tends to be delivering assets, right? Like if at the end of the day your job is to deliver X amount of assets, like
correct,
whether it's illustration or a mural or a logo or a skateboard or apparel or whatever, you're delivering, you're kind of handing off this process. I think all of this applies. And just on that, I do come from that design background. We've spoken about it before. I worked in advertising agencies. I worked for print companies. I worked for a bunch of companies, but the one factor throughout it all is exactly that, what you said, Flynn. It's you're delivering a product. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what it's for. And I think the steps of my process have been the same for every part of the industry that I worked in. But I still do graphic design. To tell you the truth, I really don't enjoy graphic design as a artist anymore. I think I've just grown out of it, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I still have the skills enough to get me by. So I still develop all my quote forms, my invoices, or anything attached to the start of the process, which I'll show you in this next slide. So this one's a bit smaller. Yeah, great.
Yeah, so I still go in and try to make even my presentations look presentable, like I want them to feel like I'm doing a brief, and I'm taking the time to sit there and find references and consider things and give them an overview, all that sort of stuff. So I think it's nice to have that background as a graphic designer and understand steps from big business side. I mean, I did pictures and I did a lot of presentations in all the jobs that I had, so I was aware of what that importance was. And In my process, I don't take a lot of time on my concepts. I kind of rough them out really quick, but I give them some inspiration. All these artists are pretty much Pinterest finds. I could give you shout outs, but I kind of just grab them, dump them in there. And that's just to show people. That's not to show people what I'm going to deliver. It's like the direction I'd take that artwork. So you can see one's kind of like that old retro vintage like mascot logo, real simple. One's the tow truck that's looking a little bit like Ed Roth, like real crazy monster inspired. Another one's kind of like I see a lot of people getting into the NASCAR style shirts or the big prints and stuff like that. So then I just deliver it in a really straightforward fashion so that people of any kind of business look at it and go, okay, so that's what the direction is going to go. I don't need to finish the artwork perfectly. So the left-hand side is my rough concept and the right hand is potential direction. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's kind of like a shortcut to their mind, right? Because, I mean, even me when I am a client, I sometimes don't know what I want either. Like, I have an idea of what I want, or I'm like, hey, let's engage this artist to do this project. Here's kind of what we're thinking, and they'll kind of take that away and come back. It's great to have, I don't want them to go too far down the wrong way. Like I might see the NASCAR thing, and for whatever reason, they might hate NASCAR, right? They're a towing company. They might be like, I hate NASCAR. But you don't know that as the artist. Or maybe they have a business partner that's not even involved in the briefing process. And you go, oh, actually, Mary doesn't like NASCAR. I know that's not going to float. So immediately you haven't spent like days going down this one particular journey that there's no way that you would know.
And especially when we're talking about an open brief where they've given no direction. So they're just like, we kind of like this or whatever, but this one's kind of like, we don't really have anything. So you just deliver us what you think would look cool. So I go straight away to like, what would I want on a show, or what would I want as a print, like how do I feel about it? And usually it's, people are coming to artists of all types to get, I don't think they're just paying for your service, they're paying for your experience, or they're coming to you for your experience. I know some people are like, oh, they might ask me in general conversation, oh, you're an artist, what color would you think's good? They're just they want your knowledge. And I think we're in an era and like a time of our lives where you can go on any of those social platforms, and every second person is an illustrator or an artist giving you their knowledge. Like I think gone are the days where it used to feel like it was really hard to work things out. So I think it's nice to have people come to you as an experienced artist and ask for your opinion and what you think. So but you're right, I don't spend any more than maybe like 5 minutes per 5 minutes. Look, the NASCAR one probably took a bit more because I just had to source some images and stuff. But other than that, I didn't go any further than rough lines because it wasn't important at this point. We just need that direction. So once I've got this point, I think it's nice to look professional always. So professionalism goes a long way. I think taking this and giving it to a client, and then they can shoot this same file to their friends and to whoever else needs to see it. It helps really get a consolidated, feedback and opinion from, I guess, many. And then we end up getting a result where they're like, okay, well, we like this, we like that direction. Let's go down that kind of route. So we kind of work throughout the process, right? So this is a rough sketch and this is my refined sketch. So 2 rounds of art in my process. 3. So there's the concept, which gets put into the presentation, has the real loose stuff. And then the second round, I'll do like a real tidied up version. Still rough, still not ready for print at all, but they get a better direction once they've chosen this sketch on the left. I can give them a better direction about like, what do the colors look like? What with their brand? What does his is his face angry? Is it sad? Is it happy? You know, you start giving them details to help tell that story a little bit more, and then we start doing all the finished art, I guess, from there. But that's kind of in a nutshell the boring part, I guess, as far as
it's a very important part. Hey, I got a question for you that relates to that part. Nix, thanks for the question in chat on Behance. Would you prefer clients to give you a mood board with ideas?
I said that at the start. I think I'd love as much direction from the start, because it minimizes how slow this process is. You know, because I could sit there for an additional 2 days working on concepts that I think might hit the mark. But if there's a mood board involved, then I'm already halfway there. You know, even better if they pull something off my website and say, "Oh, I like this style."
Yes.
Because it's already my style, so I don't have to flex and really like strain myself about the process. I know exactly how to do it, I know how to deliver it. But mood boards are great, like they're fantastic. But I create my own anyway. I like to do my own on top of whatever I get. I think that just helps me get into the right mindset to get my motor running, I guess. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's great. Thanks for the question as well and the answer.
Yeah,
cool. All right. Where to from here?
Well, so I guess from here, I was just going to kind of explain now we know that we need emails to be handled properly. We need a quote to go off, I guess. So your quote needs to go off and they need to be happy with that. You do need to consider like your presentation, your pitch for the work. Then we got to this point. Now I'm just gonna duck out of this. Sorry for the little bit of a messy desktop there, but we'll be all right. All right. So now
that's nothing compared to my desktop.
I just look at it and it just gives me a little bit of low key anxiety. I'm just like, I know I should delete it, but there's something on there that I'm going to delete and I'll regret it.
Yeah, I know. So, as soon as you delete it, you'll need it. Like you'll be like, what did I do with that file? Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh God, it's in the trash. Time machine. All right. So with the art side of things, I guess it all starts the same way. We spoke briefly about. If you haven't seen my process, there are a bunch of videos on Adobe Live that you can go and have a look at, a whole mixture of things that I've spoken about. But I'm going to briefly just go over, the process from sketch to finish. So I've got a couple of prefab files and stuff. This was a live brief, so I've already completed the job. I'm just going to walk through the steps and show a few little tips and tricks that I use throughout the process.
Cool.
So off the back of that mood board thing, here's the mood board that I had for myself. It wasn't given to me. I picked designs that I think look cool, I think suit the whole overall theme. I've spoken about this a lot of times. I like to design logos to have two parts, and it's usually included in my cost. But I like to have like a horizontal and a stacked kind of version, and I do like to be able to pull that text, or I like it to be separated. I like things to work standalone. So I guess that the bottom logo here is kind of what I'm trying to say, where it's like you're designing with the thought to how far can that go, so I get my references and then I start so I've got this little sketch, and the sketch basically starts as exactly that. So it's just like I'm using when I'm drawing, I'm just going to dial this one back so we can just rough over the top. So I'm explaining what I'm doing here. So usually I just get like the brush. I work entirely in Photoshop. I don't really stray too far from what I know. I use a couple of brushes and a couple of apps. My key apps are Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, and if I need to edit a PDF, which is a text doc mostly, I'll use that. But InDesign, Illustrator, and Photoshop are my three key programs.
Yeah.
So
you just brought that transparency down a little bit more because this is kind of your reference. Like this is kind of a sketch.
Well, yeah, I was just going to explain the sketch part of it. So when I am sketching and it's in this format, like I don't spend a lot of time on the actual, like the specifics. I'll just make sure that I've got like a rough little line work thing where I'm just grabbing this hard round pressure size brush. I leave it on maybe 100 opacity and I just turn the flow down to 50. And I start kind of just like exactly like any other process for any other illustration. I just get all my guidelines in. I get all my shapes and stuff together before I sketch out like any other details. So I get my line in. And I literally just draw as rough as I can. Sorry, Flynn, going back, I'm just talking about the conceptual stage. So this is like creating a concept, not refining it.
Yeah.
I would spend like maybe a max of like half an hour just coming up with like, you know, getting all the angles and the pose right. So like, you know, you might have to build up. You got his hand there. However you want this to go. Like I really don't spend a lot of time. I just put like all my shapes down, build up something that's a very conceptual looking drawing. And with this stage, this blue stage we'll call it, the blue stage I wouldn't spend too long on. I just make sure that I've got a good solid starting point so that if the client was to pick up and say, we want to use that guy, then I know that like I've got the perfect bones
right
to kind of build my refined stage, right? So yeah, so I'll get like I might put like you can see I've got the details of the shoes and stuff in there, like they're probably unnecessary, but I also think going forward I would have it minimizes that time. I probably did it because I had a little bit of extra time. I'll just chuck in the type however I want, get it into like these two layouts. Like I said, I want to create two always. I just like the thought of having like a portrait and a landscape, or a stacked and a horizontal, however you want to call it. But in terms of the draw itself, I'm literally just using one brush, and I use a Wacom, so I've got pressure sensitivity. It's helping with like me feeling like I'm naturally drawing through Photoshop. Like it always feels a bit more natural when you have pressure sensitivity. So that really ties me back to, you know, your grassroots stuff. Digital systems have come such a long way that like these brushes, like they feel amazing. The screens feel great. There's no harm in having to pull something in from another reference and saying, oh, I like this angle of the body. So maybe you want to get that angle of the body off one of your reference images down here. Maybe you like the way this guy's running or something. Having it digital and being digital, it lends itself to so much. So I could just say, just like this guy's, you know, with the lasso tool, just come in and pull his body. Oops, sorry, wrong layer. Sorry, my screen's so big, and when I use the mouse to get down there, because I use the mouse to navigate my arrow off the board, and then everything else, I use the pen tool. Don't ask why; it's a bit weird. Weird.
So you get a bit of exercise just navigating your giant Wacom, like going from one side of the screen to the other.
I really do. I don't know. I'm just watching my hands at the moment. It's quite weird that I'm doing that, but anyway. So yeah, you can. I think the great thing about when you're creating stuff like this, especially, and again, we've discussed this in full in another stream, I'm sure. But I love the ability to come in on Photoshop and know that, okay, well, I've got this guy, and you know, I like this pose that he's using, but maybe I want to change the spatula with the. Back in the day, you would have needed to get your light box out, do all the different layers and things like that. So. I get a lot of people sometimes. I believe they're called haters. That's the word. And they're in every industry. But I get a lot of people like, oh, you're just tracing. You know, like it's not really a skill. It's like it's not. I understand the principles of art and design and characters and things like that. Like I've earned my stripes, but I see why, because it is very easy for me to go, oh yeah, I'll just put that body there and he's now running, you know, like it's, I think it's easy to do that. I think it's great that we can do that. I think as artists, we still find a way to make it very much our own, and using reference imagery doesn't necessarily mean we're copying, it means we're referencing. And I think that sort of stuff's really important as an artist and as a digital artist as well. You need to play that very, I think you need to be safe when you're doing that sort of stuff. You need to protect your work and make sure it's your work, and you are true to yourself. So that's important at this point, because it's easy to go, oh yeah, I found these reference images. I might just trace this guy fully and just, put a long tie and take his apron off.
Yeah.
It's easy to fall into that trap. I think that's something that people should be pretty aware of and cautious of. But yeah, the process is always sketchy for me. I like it really sketchy. I like to just give people a really quick overview of what I'm trying to, deliver, I guess. Like, I want him to know he's got a hat on. I want him to know he's got an overalls. He's wearing overalls and stuff like that. So a little bit of detail, but not too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah, sweet. And all right, and then from there, once we've got that, and now we've got that image of the guy. He's kind of like, we've got that layout. I might just I'll give him the refined version, which is not showing up. One sec. Yeah, so I'll deliver this kind of thing, where it's kind of like, this is what
quite a jump.
Well, yeah, I go from like, after I've got my sketch, I kind of like start building on top of that sketch. I probably should show this color first. So I'll get this guy. He's basically been built off the bones of this guy, right? So, oops, sorry. So you can see he's pretty much,
yeah.
He is pretty much all there. But from there, I'll probably deliver a little bit less of a colored version. So there might just be black and white line work. I may have forgot to put that one in there, but I'm sure it's in my Illustrator. Can I just jump to Illustrator for a second?
Sure, go for it.
Yeah.
For sure. And
a
reminder for those that have joined us, because a bunch of people have joined us since we started, here with Dale Bigeni, here for about another half an hour. But if you've got any questions about the illustration process, we're kind of talking about live briefs, like real briefing process, like delivering stuff for client, as well as a little bit of craft and tips and techniques and things. So anything around that, let us know if you've got any questions.
Yeah. So, all right. So what happens is, well, this is our steps to the end, right? Like, so we've got our concept.
Cool.
He's rough. I don't know why I don't have the Photoshop version of this.
Right.
So there was a black version of this, and I can confirm that that's not a live trace. That's been illustrated.
Right.
But I would have the black version on top of this, so he would sit. So I'd build up the body on top of that. Does this make more sense like that, Flynn?
Yeah. So you go, Photoshop has the sketch, right? The blue line sketch, we'll call it, which is pretty rough.
Yeah.
And it's the one you showed your client. And then from there, you would do the line work also in Photoshop. Is that correct?
Correct. So I'll do a rough kind of like inking process, I guess. I know for a fact that I'm more of an Illustrator guy. I like to finish most of my stuff in Illustrator. Just preference. There's no real reason why. I like the ability to go bigger or smaller. Like the fact that Illustrator handles that the scale a lot better than Photoshop. Maybe it's getting better. I don't know. I still do Illustrator all day, so I just prefer that. But Photoshop just feels perfect for sketching and things like that. It's not for photos. I think it's perfect for sketching and stuff. So yeah, I would have had. Let's just make this clear that there would have been this guy. Then he would have jumped to like a blacked out version or an inked out version with all the details. And the text would have been set and everything would have been kind of in place for us to see what his expression was like, what his clothes look like, whether he's doing a thumbs up or he's pointing. But yeah, this is how the process works. Ignore that this is Illustrator. It would have been a Photoshop black line version of that.
Yeah.
and that's all I would have done. And then I colored it. I just colored it because I felt like coloring it. I don't usually. I just like I kind of got carried away. I was probably sitting on the couch and it just felt right, and I was in the moment. So
hey, sorry, just before we move on, just have two questions that I missed, so I might just throw them in now if that's cool, while we're kind of talking about this process. So have one from Cass from YouTube. Have you ever had to create a character with multiple views, like front profile and back profile, or different emotions?
Emotions, yeah. I used to do work for Western Sydney Wanderers back in the day. And they had these two little like foxes that we designed for their kids club, and I think that challenged me the most was exactly what Kath has asked. Not because I couldn't do it, but because like I get real caught up on maybe some of the details and how well that should look. But yeah, there was a point there where they wanted to do comic strips, so I was making comic strips for them with these two foxes, and the original ones I did were great. I wish if I could pull them up, I would. Maybe I'll post them up on Instagram and you can check it out. But yeah, I found that like when I was changing the angle of the faces and things like that, I was having a hard time with like the perspective and stuff and things feeling right. So it challenged me, but we did a whole series of them and it looked really good. But that would have been the only time I've ever had to do it where it's front, side, situational, I guess. It's where stuff like this is very like straight to the front. I know that's the perfect pose. If these guys wanted to, they could ask to use him as a mascot where he might be in different scenarios. But yeah, it's been very rare that anyone's asked me to design with multiple angles. I think if I was an animator, I'd probably be a bit more inclined to have all the angles drawn, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you'd almost have to have the T-pose thing when it's an animation. I think it's quite interesting as well. Like from the get-go, if someone asked you, then you might create the illustration or the logo quite differently, right? Because it just reminds me a little bit of, and showing my age here, but you'd know this stuff too. But like South Park, when they tried to make South Park 3D, like they were two-dimensional drawings. You try to make it 3D and try to do the side, it doesn't quite work. And I think that's the same problem as well.
Well, I think you're right. It all comes down to like if you're not told from the start, also like you never really prepare for that. Like so, if I was told, hey, we're going to be doing an animation with this guy, I'd be like, all right, I have to consider all those poses. So it's a good question to ask because it's probably something that I overlook myself. Is the necessity or the need for multiple angles on things, because I'm so used to that tattoo approach, I'll call it, where it's just like, here's the design, you get it tattooed, that's all you do with it. I enjoy doing my art like that, but I have done it before. I should definitely showcase it as an example, but it was a challenge. It definitely was.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, one more question, we'll move on. This is a difficult one to answer because, of course, there's, how long's a piece of string a little bit. The question was, what would you charge for your time for this project? Very difficult one to answer.
I think price and cost is I don't think it's a personal question. I know. I also think it does have a lot to do with who you are as an artist. And I think your experience should be considered. Guys that have been doing this for even longer than I have will charge much more than me because one, they've got a better reputation. To say you've got a piece done by that person or an artwork from that person, it's like buying, like a Picasso. You buy it because you bought into his brand almost. I think as a designer, you can set flat rates, you can set prices, you can set them however you want. As far as we're concerned, this is our field, and if your time's worth $80 an hour, then it's $80 an hour. If you want to charge per piece and you want it to be $1,000, charge $1,000. The people that like your art and want to pay for it will pay. For something like this, I wouldn't charge any less than $1,000 because I feel like that's $1,000, but it's one, I would only ever charge a deposit and a completion rate, right? So I take 50% up front, 50%. That helps anyone's budget, if you ask me. If you if you only have to pay half, and then in 4 weeks or 3 weeks when that job's done, it's almost payday again. You can pay the rest. So that's my theory. I think that's a good base for something that you're gonna make. They're gonna, obviously, they've already told me they're using it for resale anyway. So that means they're gonna put on sell shirts for $60 a pop. You know, they're gonna make half that money back in a couple of shirts. So I consider all of that stuff. But yeah, look, it could be anywhere from, I would price stuff like this anywhere between, I would say 800 and 2,000 if you really wanted to go that far.
Yep.
Like it depends on your variance, on how many times you plan on making changes. What do you include? Some people include, you know, like the buyout fee in their cost. So the buyout is and usage rights. So you got to account for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a real tough one actually, because everyone's a bit different.
Yeah, I think it also, if I could jump in as well, it also kind of really depends on what region you're in. I think another thing that is really important for probably people new to charging for their services should consider, that a lot of people don't say, is also just who's the client. Like, you know, you might have, you know, in this example, it's a towing company is different to like Apple. Or
of course,
you know what I mean. Like, but I think you say of course, but I think a lot of people don't understand the scalability. So there's also like what you pay, but there's also what you could expect someone to be able to pay. Like you might be doing, you know, I did a coffee shop branding or something, and they're just doing some signage. They're just starting out. Like they're probably not going to have a huge budget. Right? But then there's a big established brand, you know, and they're like, hey, we do a rebrand every couple of years. We're going to get you and we're going to fly you to, you know, all that sort of stuff is a very different conversation, I would say.
Well, I also agree. I think budget's a big thing. You can always ask the question, but not if the second you say budget, you open the door for them to say, well, we've only got $300.
Right.
And you shoot yourself in the foot because you didn't even get a chance to bid or put your price on the table. It's one of those things, like you said, if it's a big brand, like if when Facebook came to me, they said a budget straight away. Right. You know, they set it on the table, and it was, for me, it was like, it probably paid not as great as you would think, to be honest, but it was exposure for me. It was good for my portfolio, and sometimes you got to weigh up a loss for a win. You know,
right? Yeah, exactly right.
I think you got to be real about it. If you put Disney on your portfolio, straight away people think you're just doing amazing. You know, they think you've got like a Ferrari at the front. It's not the case. It's all hard work. You know, it's your art is what you think you're worth, I think. And I think we're all using our talents and our skills, and people are coming to us for a job. And, you know, I don't tell the plumber how much money I want to pay for his job. So I charge accordingly. But I pricing's a very, what's the word? Like it's a very tricky one.
Yeah, absolutely. There you go. It's a simple question to ask, but has quite a long answer. Very cool. Thanks for the question. It's always good to have like chats like this, even if we can't there's not a silver bullet to answers. It's good just to kind of talk about it as creators.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Anyway, that's it's the worst question. Not worst question. It's the worst thing that goes through any person's head is, how much do I charge? But I hope that helps a little bit. So anyway, back to this little guy. So the steps are pretty straightforward. So it starts in Photoshop. It might even start not in Photoshop. It might go from pencil to paper to Photoshop. But either way, the this is the direction it takes. So rough, loose sketch. Sorry, I'm just backtracking a little bit.
Cool.
And then we do a refined drawing to get like more details in. And then add some colors into that refined sketch if that's what you wish. That's not that important at this point. The third step, that's in my picture. I'm covering with my hand, pretending that you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so this guy isn't necessary. I would say isn't necessary.
Yeah.
Because what I would do really is take this one here that's highlighted in red. So I would take that guy who's just a sketch in Photoshop. Once it's approved, then I'd take it into Illustrator and I'd start vectoring him up into kind of like a line format version. Then I'd have the ability to go in and start dropping all my colors in, right? So that is where the color thing should have started, but I started there. Obviously, like I said, I just probably had the time, so I did it. But yeah, and then I kind of take cues from the business and whatever their colors, their corporate colors are, or business colors are, and just try to tie them in. They've probably made a request for these colors, and yeah, the process is so streamlined, and it always happens like this for me. It probably doesn't look like there's a lot of time in it, but there is a lot of time, a lot of considerations, and yeah, the end result is always, like I said, is vector. It's always vector, so completely editable. I can change his pants. I can. It just makes my life so much easier, and I think it's a cleaner file structure. To be honest, I think the only thing my only negative on Illustrator is the folder situation. We still don't have like folders that I can group them all into and things like that.
Right.
It's the least, like, it's not even that bad, but I like Photoshop's file management system and the ability to put files into layers and stuff like that. But yeah, that's the overall process. I might just go through some of the vectoring components of this. How much time do we have, Flynn?
Oh, 7 minutes or so.
7 minutes. All right. I might quickly just talk about like the digital inking process outside of Photoshop. So we'll move from, we'll just get rid of these guys for now. And actually, I'm not going to do that because knowing me, I'm going to delete that, save it, and let's just put him over there. All right, so I'm going to just quickly show you in the little time that I have, just two quick versions of this process. So I'll copy this guy. So if I've got my refined sketch and I've got my Illustrator file open, I'll do the same thing that I just did in Photoshop. Oops, sorry. There's a bit of glare on my screen and I couldn't see where opacity is. So I'll just go opacity, knock it back, create a new layer on top of that. And for this style of art, I always use the pencil tool for my outline. Sorry. So I just go over this with the pencil tool, just because I like to get one kind of like continuous line. Sorry if it's not following the lines great. I'm just going to do it really quick. I like to have one continuous line that once it's done, I can flick between stroke sizes really easy. It's just easier for me to manage kind of like what happens after that internally in the lines. Sometimes you should probably go a bit slower and not so far. The pencil tool is great, but it also has a few little kinks in it where if you go a little bit too far, sometimes it just rounds off the corner. Yeah, like that. But anyway, let's just keep going. Sorry, and if you do shift space on Illustrator, you can rotate the screen.
So does that make the angle a bit like better for like the way your wrist is going?
Yeah, because I'm on the tablet, I want it to feel like I'm kind of still maneuvering that piece of paper and twisting and turning without having to kind of like, strain myself and climb over this massive tablet. So yeah. So anyway, once we've got that and we've got like an outline of that, I like it because once it's finished, I can just go in and I can use the stroke tool. I always round the joint and the cap. I just like it rounded because it takes away any of those sharp edges. And then that way, doing it like that, now if I do my internal lines and they're too fat or too thin, I can quickly go in to the stroke and it's as easy as doing that with the stroke, just lifting the weight. Reason I say that is because I use the blob tool for all the internal lines. The blob tool is very hit and miss with consistency with the pressure, but that's why I like it. I like how it's got a bit of natural flow to it, but I think I might have to leave the blob tool discussion for tomorrow because I don't want to run out of time and rush that little part.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, there you go, everybody. You got to tune in tomorrow. Check out the blob tool in action.
Yeah, just it's a little it's the combination of the two work perfectly, but it's easier to explain when you watch it kind of in action. So yeah, it's a lot of flicking between the blob tool and the pencil tool, but this is the end result that we can get, and it's pretty crispy clean thanks to Illustrator being that perfect.
Yeah, nice. I love that you do the line thin and then you thicken it up, because obviously when you're doing a thin line, like even a slight imperfection can feel like it's really far off, but then once you thicken it up, it looks perfect because you've gone into that detail. I might pick that one up. That was pretty cool.
It's definitely I refer to a lot of my art to the tattoo world, but if you use a thicker needle in the tattoo machine, the lines always look smoother than one needle, like, so it reduces the vibration and stuff. So it's the same sort of thing with drawing, right? You vibrate a little bit and it's a thin line, it's very noticeable, but once that line's thicker, less in your face.
That's it.
Yeah. Nice. But yeah, that's I think we can definitely talk about color, line work, and kind of like I've got my little sun up here. If anyone's wondering, the sun's
there. I was going to ask you about that actually. Yeah, is that to show where the shade is? Like,
yeah, that was just my light source. So it's just like I either draw a line or something, but I just drew a little sun, and that just shows where like the light's falling from. So I try to stay as close to that as possible. Whether or not I got there, the job's approved, so the client loved it.
Yeah, you got the Fallout Boy thumbs up happening, which is very on brand for what's happening at the moment.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, I think that takes us to the end of today. We've got cliffhangers. We've got everything you could possibly want from a live stream. We've had a good chat. We had great questions from chat. Thanks, Nix and Cass, for those fantastic questions. There was a few others as well who I can't remember. But yeah, thanks a lot. We're going to be live at the exact same time here on Adobe Live tomorrow, so please tune in. Just a quick little shout out if you're not aware, because I feel like this has flown somewhere under the radar. There's a really big event happening in like 8 hours technically in London, but I think it's 8 hours our time. It's like 11 p.m. or something. You can go watch it. You can live stream it. So if that's a good time for you in your region, check it out. Otherwise, Adobe Max is happening in London. There's some awesome artists. James Barnard from here in Australia, he's over there. Annie Atkins is there. Louis Theroux is on stage there. There's a lot happening. Go check it out. And we'll be here back with Dale tomorrow on Adobe Live.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks a lot, Dale, and everyone. See you later and see you next time on Adobe Live. Bye.
Thanks, Blaine.